Give me a second to show up, folks. Got a few things I'm setting up right now, so just hang on with me. Hi there. Hi, everyone. This is Cassandra Williamson, and I am coming to you from a holler in eastern Kentucky. And it's been a busy morning. Going to be a busy afternoon, to say the least. So, a couple of things I wanted to do today, and I'm hoping some people will drop in because I do want to take on some issues and some questions that people have about various things. And I understand those questions. They're legitimate questions and legitimate concerns. And so I want to address a few things. First thing is, if you don't already know, President Trump has activated the National Guard in D.C. to help, and he's federalized the police force in Washington, D.C., saying that the city is run over with crime. And there's a lot of crime there. Yeah, it has decreased. That's also true. It's also decreased. But he wants to go on beyond even that. He wants to take out, remove the people who are homeless from the streets and take their tents and their encampments down. And I'm kind of torn about that one. I don't, the people need to have something, but he wants to ship them out of the community because they are making the community look bad. And most of these people do need help, so he wants to send them somewhere. But the question is, where does he want to send them? I think, from what I'm understanding, is that he wants to reactivate some of those sanatoriums that we used to have, like a long time ago, and put a bunch of them in there. But that's just the opening salvo. We won't stop with that stuff. And so I just want to clarify a couple of other points too, and I'm hoping some people will show up on this today and watch. And if you're not watching, well, okay, you're missing out. So I'll do this again too, but I do want to address a few things and some legitimate concerns and questions that I have received from people I love dearly and respect greatly as well. And so I just want to make sure that I'm addressing these things and I don't come across as being just solely opinionated. And yeah, I can be opinionated, and those opinions do come from looking at the stuff that I see and the patterns and trends that I have seen over time. And I recognize those things for what they are. And I know also that there's a lot of interpretation in things, and people can see different things. But whenever you walk in someone else's shoes, or at least you live the life that is a little different from yours, you're paying attention to a lot of other things that most people don't see and most people will miss out on. And, that's fine. But there's a whole lot more out there going on than what is being spoon-fed on other channels and stuff like that. I happen to watch Fox News. I know some of the stuff that they spew out there. You don't hear a lot of the things that I talk about on Fox. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for it, because they don't want you to know that there's another point of view. They don't want you to know that it's a little bit more complex than what they want you to think, that there's other things going on that besides just constant badgering of trans people, which they do. Transgender people is constantly under attack by Fox News and the ones on the right. And it is persistent and has been for quite a long time. And it gets to be a huge, huge burden on trans people because they're having to deal with all this negativity day in and day out. It's not something inherently that they brought on themselves. It's people just don't want them to exist openly in society. People don't want to let them live. They want to live openly and honestly, but we can't let those people do it, though. We want to eliminate marriage equality. We want to eliminate all of these different things simply because your faith says so. Well, pick a different darn faith. That's all I got to tell you, because that one's lying to you. So I will tell you this. There's some things that I do want to address, though. So I'm going to go down a little list of things that are valid. And so I want to show you something. I want to show you a clip. Now, this was by this whole interview, a CNN interview with Doug Wilson in Moscow, Idaho. If you haven't seen that whole interview, it's only about 7 minutes long. And so I'm going to play the whole thing here. Now, it's a CNN thing. The whole interview, though, was released by, there's a publisher in Moscow, Idaho, who has access to that, and they've got the complete video clip, so it's all over on X, and I downloaded it from X directly. So I have the full clip from X of CNN's interview with Doug Wilson. It's only about 7 minutes long, so I'm going to play that right now. So you just hang tight, okay? Here we go. Well, no, not yet. I wonder why the sound's not playing. Hold on a minute. Got to get this set back up here. Let me just do it like this. Let me go in and get this. I'm going to add a scene directly from another direction, okay? Because that didn't work quite well. I'm going to go ahead and add media. I got to go in and do all this. I'm going to put video. And let me see if I can pull up that video. No, not from there. I'm going to go over to other. Play a local video directly from my computer, and we'll play this one and open it. Oh, so here we go. So this might do it.
Christchurch senior pastor Doug Wilson makes no apologies for his beliefs on God and country.
I'd like to see the town be a Christian town. I'd like to see the state be a Christian state. I'd like to see the nation be a Christian nation. I'd like to see the world be a Christian world.
And now Wilson's controversial views as a Christian nationalist are gaining sway in the nation's center of power with the recent opening of his new church and high-profile parishioners like Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Is planting a church in D.C. part of your mission to try to turn this into a Christian nation?
Yes. So every society is theocratic. The only question is who's theo? In a secular democracy, it would be demos, the people. In a Christian republic, it'd be Christ.
Well, what would you say to someone watching this to say, look, I'm a Muslim. Who are you to say your worldview is better than mine, that your God is better than mine?
Well, if I went to Saudi Arabia, I would fully expect to live under their God's rules.
But you said earlier that you want this to be a Christian world.
Yes.
So you want to supplant their religion with your Christian.
Yes, by peaceful means, by sharing the gospel. There's a lot of work yet to do. I believe that we are working our little corner of the vineyard.
Wilson's Little Corner, a picturesque campus nestled on the outskirts of downtown Moscow, Idaho, is growing by the day with thousands of like-minded Christians. Parishioners of his church, known as Kirkers, own and operate several businesses downtown, next to liberal college town stores.
If it's true.
Why did he yell boo? Because it's
because of me.
because of you.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
That's a regular day for you.
That's not unusual.
A big focus of this Christian movement is on a patriarchal society where men are dominant and women are expected to submit to their husbands.
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
So you just think they're meant to have babies. That's
well,
it. They're just a vessel.
No, it doesn't take any talent to simply reproduce biologically. The wife and mother, who is the chief executive of the home, is entrusted with 3 or 4 or 5 eternal souls.
I'm here as a working journalist, and I'm a mom of 3.
Good for you.
Is that an issue for you?
No, it's not automatically an issue.
Josh and Amy Prince, along with their 4 kids, moved here from Washington State.
Do you see Amy as your equal?
Yes and no, in the sense that we're both saved by grace. We're absolutely on equal footing, but we have very different purposes, God-given.
But do you see yourself as the head of the household, as the man?
He is the head of our household.
He is.
Yes, and I do submit to him.
So like moving here
I was just
was
gonna say that.
ultimately your decision.
Yes.
That's a great
That's a great
example.
example.
Wilson says in his vision of a Christian society, women as individuals shouldn't be able to vote. His fellow pastors, Jared Longshore and Toby Sumter, agree.
In my ideal society, we would vote as households. And I would ordinarily be the one that would cast the vote, but I would cast the vote having discussed it with my household.
But what if there's your wife doesn't want to vote for the same
Right.
person as you?
Right. Well, then that's a great opportunity for a good discussion.
There are some who have gone so far as to say that they want the 19th Amendment repealed.
I would support that. And I'd support it on the basis that the atomization that comes with our current system is not good for humans.
And Wilson, a veteran himself, is unapologetic about his view that women shouldn't be in certain leadership or combat roles.
Looking at the leadership page for Christ Church,
Right.
it's all men. Do you accept women in leadership roles in the church and government?
In the church, no.
Why?
Because the Bible says not to.
Well, that's not what happens in the Bible. Women do lead all the time.
Progressive faith leader Reverend Jennifer Butler is concerned about Wilson's growing influence.
He is rapidly gaining in power. He has hundreds of churches established around the country. They actually literally want to take over towns and cities, and they have access to this administration.
Wilson is part of a broader Christian nationalist movement making inroads with the Trump administration, with a newly created faith office led by evangelical pastor Paula White Cain, and people seen right outside the White House entrance praying and speaking in tongues.
We are standing on the soil of the White House, and we are declaring your word.
How precious.
And now there's a monthly prayer service at the Pentagon, initiated by Hegseth, Wilson's highest level connection to the administration.
It's not organizationally tied to us, but it's the kind of thing we'd love to see.
For his part, Hegseth has publicly praised Wilson.
Now we're standing on the shoulders of a generation later, the Doug Wilsons and the others.
Wilson's influence spans the globe with more than 150 churches. Lennox Califungwa moved to Moscow from Africa.
It's really because I wanted to be a part of a community that was doing something, and especially in building Christian institutions.
Are there other black families in this community?
Oh, absolutely. There's a few black families.
Wilson maintains all are welcome to his church, but he's also not shying away from his past controversial statements on race.
Do you still believe what you said back in the 90s, that there's a mutual affection between master and slave?
Yes, it depends on which master and which slave you're talking about. Slavery was overseen and conducted by fallen human beings, and there were horrendous abuses, and there were also people who owned slaves who were decent human beings and didn't mistreat them. I think that system of chattel slavery was an unbiblical system, and I'm grateful it's gone.
What he also wants gone, same-sex marriage, because he thinks homosexuality is a crime.
In the late 70s and early 80s, sodomy was a felony in all 50 states. That America of that day was not a totalitarian hellhole.
So you would like America to go back to that?
Yep.
Wilson maintains his ultimate goal is to bring about the second coming of Christ through his work, and rejects critics' claims he's trying to make the dystopian world of The Handmaid's Tale a reality.
I'm not a white nationalist. I'm not a fascist. I'm not a racist. I'm not a misogynist.
How far off do you see a Christian nation, like a full-on Christian theocracy?
Oh, 250 years.
250 years.
Yeah, honestly, that's yes.
What you see. But you do think it will happen?
Yes, I do. We're not going to usher in anything ourselves. We're really genuinely pioneers.
There you go. So that's why I say that Secretary Hegseth, who happens to agree with this pastor, who moved his family to Tennessee to be near one of Doug Wilson's churches there in Tennessee. That's why I say Hegseth agrees with this pastor and his associate pastors that the 19th Amendment needs to be repealed. These people don't think women have a right to vote. These people don't think you have enough agency on your own as a woman to make those decisions without having the influence and direction of a man. They believe you should be submitting to the will of the man. I worked in this environment for 6.5 years with Kenneth and Gloria Copeland down in Texas. Christian nationalists, submissiveness, all of it. I know where they come from, and they're wrong. So I wanted you to see what Doug Wilson says so that you can kind of piece it together in a way to see exactly why I'm so strongly opposed to this. And I'm strongly opposed to what Hegseth and the Trump administration are doing right now, bringing their faith into the halls of the federal government, because I know where this is headed. This is the first step towards what they want, which is a Christian nationalist state. Wilson says he's not a fascist and not a Christian nationalist or whatever, or not a nationalist, not a fascist. Well, look, he's not being honest with himself, nor is he being honest with you, because the things that he wants are authoritarian control over the government, and these people telling you what morality is and how to believe and how to think and what your life should be like. They want to be able to impose their religious views on the whole of the world, as he said. And that completely disregards the fact that there are other religions in the world that have just as much validity as any other one. And that may be shocking for some people to hear, because I'm going to tell you, this is what I think about it. There's not a single religious text that was not written by the hand of men and in the imagination and thoughts of men. Not a single one. Here's how you know. Here's how you know. So I want to ask you if you've ever heard of the book of Enoch. It was in the early Christian texts that talked about Christ after, or Jesus after, after the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were kind of filled in some gaps in there. What happened to the book of Enoch? Well, it was excluded in the first couple of centuries because those early leaders wanted to control and dictate to women that they had only one role in society. But Jesus didn't say that. And in the book of Enoch, he didn't say that either, as a matter of fact. And there's much more he said there that you probably wouldn't want to hear. I can tell you right now. The religious leaders of every age, from the very beginning of their text, their writings or whatever, have written down what they want you to see, and they go back over it and review it and check it and change it and make it more consistent with the rest of the stuff written prior to that. And if they don't like part of it, given the current environment they may be living in, well, it gets removed. But see, during the first century, the first millennium, let me rephrase that. During the first millennium, there were several conferences, several councils held over the meaning of Christianity. The first one didn't occur until 500. Well, it might have been first. There may have been one prior to that. But in 500 and something AD, 470 years after Jesus, they decided that they wanted to sit down and have this conversation about what it meant to be a Christian. I want to tell you, do you know any stories of your family or of any people that you know personally from 470 years ago? No, you don't. You can't tell me a single one of them. You can't tell me a single thing that they thought or wrote. So whatever you do put out there that you think that they said, you're interpreting it, you're adding to it, you're creating it. And if they don't like it, somebody else doesn't like it, well, it gets changed and adapted and all this kind of stuff too. But the book of Enoch was in there. And we know that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written 60 years, 30 to 60 years, 30 to 120 years after Jesus lived. I'm not debating whether he lived or not. I don't care. But I'm telling you that the people who wrote this stuff down, I don't know what my dad said 50 years ago I can't tell you anything that he said that needs to be written down and expounded upon and turned into some massive text. The people repeating these stories did it by word of mouth. And if you ever sit around a table or in a group and you have all these people sitting around this table and you whisper one story, one little thing with a little bit of, stuff tied up into it. You whisper that to one person and that person silently or very quietly whispers it to the next. And let's say you go around like 60 people. Do you think that by the time it comes back to you, it's going to be the same as what you said when you started? No, it won't be. That's word of mouth. So it's all been changed. The Book of Enoch left out. Protestant Reformation, the Maccabees got left out. Do you know what the Maccabees are? Any of you? Some of you might. Most of you don't. Book of Maccabees are included in the Catholic Bible. So they got kicked out, though, during the Protestant Reformation. The Book of Enoch got kicked out early on because it spoke of a Jesus that the leaders of the time didn't want you to know about. But all of them were passed through word of mouth because not a single one was a copy of text and a recording of text directly from the mouth of Jesus or Paul or any of them. Not a one. Anyway, my point is not to berate your religious beliefs. It's also true in Islam. Why do you think there's a Shia and Sunni differences? Why do you think there's Shia theocracy in Iran right now? It is a theocratic fascist nation. And they hate the other groups. They go after and try to destroy the Sunnis. Where have we seen that kind of stuff before? Gosh almighty, folks. Oh my gosh. So Hegseth does want to repeal the 19th Amendment. He has not explicitly stated that. But you can build it from the evidence that you have. You can build it from the evidence that we see. And you're not going to find this on Fox News because it destroys the narrative that they want you to have, that Christians are being persecuted in this country, that there's no religious freedom, and that there should not be separation of church and state, when in fact they do. There should be separation of church and state. And I can say that not from my opinions, but from historical fact. I can tell you that this was not a Christian nation from historical fact. The very first treaty we signed was with Tripoli, the Tripoli Treaty. As a nation, you know what it said in there? It said explicitly that the United States is not a Christian nation. Find it. Read it. It's there. John Jay wrote it. It's there. Check out the readings of Hamilton and Jefferson and different ones and dig into them, their personal writings. You'll find out exactly what they thought. But here's the thing. I can prove it to you another way too, about the separation of church and state, and that we didn't want this to be a Christian-dominated nation, because Jefferson loved to read the Quran. That's one. Second thing is, several states, I'm not sure of exactly which ones. I know there was like Kentucky and Virginia and Tennessee and a couple other states during the early federal period, all prior to the 1850s, all prior to the 1850s, 1840s, had in their constitutions, or at least as statutes or laws within their states, but Texas put it into their constitution. They did not want pastors and religious leaders to govern the state, because they didn't want Two reasons why. Those pastors had a responsibility to their congregation or their whatever, but they made it explicitly about Christianity, because basically that's what was there here then. There were no mosques, basically. There were no mosques in the country, and there were no synagogues in the country, so they only focused on what was in front of them, and that was the Christian pastors, whether Catholic or Protestant, because there were Catholics in Texas. You know why, right? Do I need to? I can go into that too. A lot of the people in Texas were from Mexico, and a lot of the people from Mexico were Spaniards who happened to be Catholic. So, yeah. So anyway, back to Texas and those other states. In 1836, when Texas became a state, a nation of its own, the Republic of Texas, it was written into their constitution that no one who was a pastor of a church or a leader of a church should be allowed to govern the state, because they didn't want that perception of the Christianity being the leading force in the state. Several other U.S. states had the same kinds of things in their laws and their statutes. It didn't take them long to remove it. I think it was probably after the Civil War that they removed a lot of that language, because, I guess they thought that everybody understood there would be no blending of church and state. But lo and behold, here we are today. So I will state it emphatically again. This nation was not designed, the Constitution was not written to create a Christian nation. They did not explicitly state those things in the Constitution. All they said was, you have the freedom to choose your religious beliefs for yourself. And that meant that you had the right to either believe or not believe. Now let's go back to the Pilgrims. So let me see. The Pilgrims did, in fact, leave their countries. They wanted to get away from the oppression that they were feeling there in England, and after moving to Europe, they decided to go on and try to get into America. So the Pilgrims and the different religious and the people over in Rhode Island, who were just a little bit different, Roger Williams and his bunch, but they didn't think, they did not believe that there should be religious pluralism. They wanted religious freedom for themselves, and they made sure to oppose anything that came along that thought differently. It was a forced structure of religious control. It was theocratic fascism, today's terminology. And then whenever you had some free-thinking people up in Massachusetts, free thinking as in challenging the belief system and challenging the men's authority, you know what happened to them? They got dunked under the water. Yep. The Salem witch trials. They weren't witches. They just happened to have different ways of perceiving the world. And that's all right. But it challenged the authority of the men. And that's the biggest problem right now. It's what's going on in this country with Hegseth wanting to get rid of the 19th Amendment. And somebody ought to press him on it. Do you, Pete Hegseth, want to see the 19th Amendment repealed? Do you think that women should submit to the man, that women should not be in leadership roles? And I can tell you by the evidence that I am seeing, by the evidence of everything that he has written, from the War on Warriors to his actions as Secretary of Defense and his statements on Fox News, everything supports exactly what I'm saying. He does not think women should be in leadership. Now, he tried to water that down when he was in the hearings on Capitol Hill to be confirmed as Secretary of Defense. Tried to make it sound more appealing. And you had a couple of women Republicans who decided they would go ahead and support him, I hope they're regretting that vote right now. Let me see. Got a comment up here. Go over here and take care of this for a second. Let's see what we've got. The bloodiest, most brutal wars fought, all based on religious hatred, which is fine with me. Anytime a bunch of holy people want to go out and kill each other, I'm a happy guy. George Carlin. Hey, Bert. I know you have another. I get it. I understand that. Yes. Apologies. About George Carlin, though, yeah, comical person for sure. A lot vulgar, though, sometimes. But anyway, still funny. So we have a lot of things going on in this country, and a lot of what I'm seeing is just the evidence, the path, the direction that people are taking, the things they are saying. It all comes down to one thing. It shows who they are. It tells me what they want. Whenever this administration tells the federal government, the legislative side, or not the legislative side, but the executive branch of the federal government, that you can go ahead and put up your biblical iconography, you can put up your crosses, put your Bibles in there, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm hoping they have a separate space, or at least a space for people who want to put up, I don't know, maybe the crescent moon, or a shrine to Mohammed. How about a Buddha? Love to see a Buddha in the rotunda of the Justice Department. Now look, you're going, you were raised over here in the hills, and you were raised as a Southern Baptist, and yeah, I was raised as a Southern Baptist. I went to work for Kenneth Copeland, who was a charismatic apostolic Pentecostal, tongue talking, laying on the hands, healing the sick, and casting out the demons type. Yeah. Of course I know those things. I've read them and read the books inside and out. I've read the Bibles numerous times. I can't tell you how many times. I've read the Quran. I've read some of the Vedic literature, not all. Vedic literature is the foundation for Hinduism and partially into Buddhism. So just because I've read them, it doesn't mean that I have to accept them at face value completely as they are. Because if I did that, then I would have to say that all Muslims are bad, which they're not. I would have to say that all Christians are bad, which they're not. I'd have to make those conclusions, because who else would want to cut a baby in half, right? So the point is this. The evidence is there for all to see that this administration has been taken over by Christian nationalism, Christian fascist nationalism. They want an authoritarian leader. Now, let me just tell you what that means. What is authoritarian? We toss that word out there. We toss it around a lot, and very few people actually know what. You want to boil it down to one word? Let's just say boss. They want a strong, charismatic boss who can make decisions, and they can trust those decisions, and they will follow them because they're making decisions and doing things. They want a boss. A Republican form of government, this constitutional republic, isn't based on bosses. There's nothing in it that assigns any one particular branch of the federal government the title boss or authoritarian. The two are interchangeable in a large extent, okay? A boss, I mean it in that way. Now, let me tell you, I've been in multiple businesses, in multiple industries, and I've been the boss. It's really hard for me to go back and say, hey, I'd like for all of y'all to get together. We're going to have a conversation today about the direction we should be taking and all of this kind of stuff here in the business. No, when I walk into my business I'll look around and see that something needs to be fixed, and I'll go, hey, you there. But you can't extend that to running a government, particularly one that is a constitutional republic, where no branch should have authority greater than the rest. But what's going on? Well, you got a president right now who wants to just take over DC. But, he's got good reasons, though, right? He's got good reasons, right? I mean, there is violence in DC. It's come down. There are murders in DC. They've come down. But yeah, they're still there. And there's a lot of homeless people there. And so he has federalized the police force of Washington, D.C. under the Article 740 and the agreement that's created this city of D.C. as an independent city in 1973. So he's yanking that away. But, he's told us what he wants to do from the very beginning. We've got their guidebook. We know where they want to go. We know how they want to do it. They're telling us exactly what they want to do. And he made it clear in his pronouncement the other day, whenever he was talking about federalizing the police force in DC, putting in some National Guard units and maybe sending in some active duty military people, maybe. He's already tried that. He already did it in LA. The Marines were sent there. And he federalized the National Guard, the California National Guard for LA. But these are all tests, folks. Tests. And you can guarantee he's going to try it again in another city. One where there is no 740 option. Why? Because he's the boss. He's an authoritarian. He comes by it naturally. That's where his business, that's how he built his businesses, right? He comes by it naturally. And half the country wants that. They want somebody to step in and say, yeah, we can do it this way. We need to do it that way. And here's what you need to be doing. You go do that. You go do this. You go do this. I'll take over that. And I'll take the Kennedy Center and put it under my control. I'll take the 250th anniversary of the history of the country. I put it under my control. And the Olympics, and we'll put that under my control too. And I'm talking about literally under his control, because he thinks there's nobody else who can do it. And he wants his name in the lights. So I hope I've addressed some of the questions. There's a lot of historical proof for everything that I've said. A lot of it is based on the patterns that I see, and the patterns are not good. The path of these patterns, the direction of these patterns, the chart, if you chart them all out, no, it's a deliberate attempt to take complete control of the federal government and put it under the hand of Trump. That's what he believes. And that's what a lot of this country believes. And I don't know how to change that. So that's really worrisome to me. I know that this republic, it's got a lot of problems. The original Constitution was written as an exclusionary document. It excluded African Americans. It excluded women. It excluded every other minority out there. Their voices were not heard. Compromises were made so that you could bring on the South, or at least the slave states, the 3/5 compromise. These things were put in there in order to compromise and bring together the federal nation. That was what Hamilton wanted and Madison wanted. That's what they wanted. They were Federalists initially. And so they wanted to create a powerful federal government. And so that's what this Constitution was all about. It excluded a lot of people, folks. Did it deliberately. As a matter of fact, originally there was also discussions about only people who could vote would be those who owned property. If you rented, they didn't want you to vote. And I've heard that same argument today in the modern era. There are people who think that if you don't own property, you have no right to vote. Several people talking over on X talk about stuff like that all the time. And some are self-aware enough to be able to call themselves what they really are. Like, I mention Matt Walsh all the time. You have to admire a person who doesn't care what you think about his use of certain words. In his bio, he calls himself a theocratic fascist. He knows who he is. He knows that that's what he thinks. He's the man of the house. The decisions that are made are his. The woman submits to him. He's making a lot of money, obviously. He's doing well, doing very well. Very happy for him and his family. Absolutely. But he knows he's a theocratic fascist. Now, people like Chris Rufo and Pete Hegseth and Doug Wilson and all these other people out there, they don't have the guts to tell you who they really are. You have to go digging for it. One commenter over on X named anti-fascist or anti-communist, I'm sorry, they're different, vastly different, actually said when I pointedly asked about these kind of things. So I asked this person, I said, so are you also anti-fascist? If you're anti-communist, are you also anti-fascist? The reply back was an enumerated list of people. Number 1 was Paul. Number 2 was Franco. Number 3 was Trump, I think. Yeah. Then number 4 was Uncle Addie. Now you're going to go, what? What does that mean? Is that a joke or something? Uncle Addie, Paul, Franco, Trump, and Uncle Addie. Well, it took me a little while because I had never heard that particular term being used for this particular person, Uncle Addie. I knew who Franco was, the fascist leader of Spain in World War II. Paul, I couldn't quite place. Not initially, but I figured it out. Trump, I obviously know he's a boss. He's a boss, authoritarian, fascist tendencies. Paul, though, threw me for a minute. So I started digging around. And it turns out that Joseph Goebbels' first name is Paul. So I figured that's who that had to be. Franco I knew, Trump I know about, Uncle Addie. So I did a search for Uncle Addie. That didn't turn up anything really helpful. Then I just did a search for Addie. And guess what? It turns out that it was a favorite nickname that even he liked. And that was Adolf Hitler. A nickname for him. The children of his administrators and different people in different places would call him Addie or Uncle Addie for their kids. So this person was telling me flat out that they're a fascist of that vein. Paul Joseph Goebbels, Franco in Spain, Trump, who this person also sees as being a fascist, okay? An anti-communist sees Trump as being fascist and actually likes it. And then Uncle Addie being, Adolf Hitler. So when I pressed this person further, I said, are you a theocratic fascist? And this person said, more like an ethical fascist. Have you ever heard of an ethical fascist? Ethical fascist. Anyway, this person considers himself to be a proponent of ethical fascism. Ethical meaning you rule the country with an iron fist, but you do it because that's what your religious text tells you to do, like Paul Wilson just said in that little clip you just watched at the beginning of this show. That's what ethical fascism is. But the anti-communist also said, but power corrupts. And very rarely, that never happens. Ethical fascism never happens, but it's an ideal. I'm thinking, phew, oh my gosh. Yeah. So what I see in this country, I'm going to sum it up here really quickly. What I see happening in the country right now is that we're seeing a headlong rush towards theocratic fascism across the federal government. It's deliberate, it's purposeful. It comes from the Heritage Foundation. It comes from Doug Wilson. And Doug Wilson's church in D.C., you know where it's located? It's beside, there's a door beside the Heritage Foundation that's part of that big building that the Heritage Foundation is in. There's a little eatery that's down below there. I've been in there. There's a little door that's up on that street where the main entrance to Heritage Foundation is, in the main building for the Heritage Foundation. It's in that building. Yeah. Thank God for the Constitution, right? Yep. Right now, it's in shambles. Right now, it's being threatened by a boss of bosses. And there's another way to say that: an authoritarian after fascism's own art. And nothing is ethical about it. Nothing. This is not ethical fascism, and whatever that is. Come back at 6 and we'll have another conversation.